The words hit me like ice water as I stood outside the consultation room, my hand frozen on the polished brass handle. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Between you and me, doctor, I need you to tell her she can't have children. Make something up. Medical jargon. Whatever it takes. That was Marcus, my fiancé of 3 years. The man whose ring sat on my finger, whose mother had spent the past 6 months planning our June wedding. I'm sorry, I don't think I understand what you're asking me to do. Dr. Patricia Henshaw's voice was careful, professional. The same voice I'd heard 1,000 times during our residency together at Johns Hopkins, back when we'd spent 70-hour weeks elbow deep in research that would later revolutionize fertility treatments. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. I'd only stepped out to take a call from the caterer. The appointment wasn't supposed to start for another 10 minutes. Look, Rachel's a great girl, but she's not mother material. Too focused on her hobbies, too scattered. I've tried dropping hints, but she doesn't get it. If a doctor tells her she's infertile, she'll let go of this baby obsession, and we can get back to our lives. My hand found my stomach, pressing against the silk blouse Marcus had bought me last month. The blouse I'd worn because he said it made me look put together for once. My hobbies. That's what he called the pro bono legal work I did for women's shelters. The nights I spent reviewing custody cases, fighting for mothers who'd lost everything. Mr. Whitmore, I cannot and will not falsify medical information. That's not only unethical, it's illegal. If you don't want children, you need to have an honest conversation with your fiancé. I do want children, just not with someone like her. I need a real partner, someone who'll be present, someone maternal. Rachel's always got her nose in some case file, always fighting someone else's battle. She'd probably forget to pick the kids up from school. The hallway seemed to tilt. 3 years. 3 years of his supportive smiles when I worked late. His patient sighs when I had to cancel dinner because a client was in crisis. His gentle suggestions that maybe I was taking on too much, working too hard, caring too much about strangers. I'd thought he understood. I'd thought he loved that about me. I'm going to ask you to leave, Mr. Whitmore. I have a patient arriving shortly, and I need to prepare. Fine, but think about it, doctor. You'd be doing her a favor. Trust me. Footsteps approached the door. I moved quickly, rounding the corner into the reception area just as Marcus emerged. He didn't see me. He was already on his phone, his voice carrying that smooth confidence he used with clients at his architecture firm. Yeah, I'm handling it. The doctor's being difficult, but I'll convince Rachel to see someone else. Someone more cooperative. Don't worry, babe. By the time the wedding rolls around, she'll be too devastated about the baby thing to even think about any of this. Babe. He'd called someone else babe. I stood there in the marble-floored reception area of the Henshaw Fertility Institute, the premier clinic on the East Coast, watching my fiancé walk toward the elevator. The same elevators I'd helped design the security protocols for, back when Patricia was first establishing her practice. The same building where my name appeared on a discreet plaque in the research wing, though Marcus had never noticed it during our 3 previous visits. The receptionist smiled at me. Ms. Torres, Dr. Henshaw is ready for you now. I nodded, unable to speak. My legs carried me back down that hallway, past the consultation room door where my entire world had just shattered. Patricia's private office was at the end of the hall, and when I walked in, I found her standing by the window, her face tight with anger. Rachel. She turned, and her expression shifted from professional distance to genuine concern. We'd maintained appropriate boundaries during my previous appointments, but now something in my face must have told her I'd heard everything. How much did you catch? Enough. My voice came out steady, surprisingly so. He wanted you to lie to me, to tell me I'm infertile. Patricia moved toward me, her hand reaching out before she caught herself. Even after all these years, after all the breakthroughs we'd made together in the field, she maintained that careful professional distance with patients. But I wasn't just a patient. I was the colleague who'd spent 3 years in the lab with her, the one who'd held her hand when her own fertility journey had ended in heartbreak, the friend who'd been at her side when she decided to dedicate her life to helping others achieve what she couldn't. "Sit down," she said quietly. "We need to talk." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I sank into the leather chair across from her desk, the same chair where, 6 months ago, I'd sat with Marcus's hand in mine, listening to Patricia explain our options. We'd been trying for a year with no success. "Nothing concerning," she'd said. "Just a matter of timing and perhaps some minor intervention." Marcus had squeezed my hand then, kissed my temple. "Whatever it takes, sweetheart. We're in this together." Lies. All lies. "Rachel, I need you to listen to me very carefully." Patricia sat across from me, her hands folded on the mahogany desk. Behind her, diplomas and commendations covered the wall, including one we'd received together for our groundbreaking work on embryonic development. What he asked me to do crosses every ethical line in medicine, but more than that, what I just heard suggests a level of manipulation that concerns me deeply. "He's seeing someone else." The words felt distant, like I was reporting on someone else's life. "He called her babe. Said by the time the wedding happens, I'll be too devastated to notice." Notice what, do you think? That was Patricia. Always asking the right questions, the ones that made you think deeper. I'd watched her do it with patients, with research candidates, with anyone who came to her with a problem that needed more than a surface solution. Notice that he's already moved on. That this whole thing, I gestured vaguely at the room, at the situation, at my entire life, has been a charade. When did he first suggest you come here? I thought back, my mind clicking through memories with the analytical precision I usually reserved for case files. January, right after New Year's. We'd been trying for a year, and I mentioned maybe seeing someone. He insisted on the best. He researched clinics, made the calls, set up the appointments. And he's been to every single one? Every one. Each appointment flashed through my mind. Marcus, attentive and concerned. Marcus, asking questions about timelines and procedures. Marcus, looking grave when Patricia suggested we might need more extensive testing. He played the supportive partner perfectly, because he was documenting his support, building a narrative. Patricia's expression darkened. "Rachel, I've seen this before. Not exactly this, but variations. Partners who use fertility struggles as weapons, as proof of inadequacy, as leverage." The room felt too small suddenly. "He's been setting me up." "I think he's been setting you up for months. Maybe longer." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The woman he was talking to on the phone. Do you have any idea who she might be?" I shook my head, then stopped. "Wait. His new partner at the firm. Vivian Chen? She joined about 8 months ago. He's been working late a lot. Said they were collaborating on a major project for some tech mogul's estate." "Has he been different since she arrived?" Different. Yes, he'd been different. More critical of my work schedule. More insistent that I dress a certain way, act a certain way. More vocal about my supposed inadequacies as a future mother. But he'd framed it all as concern, as wanting the best for our future family. He's been gaslighting me. The realization settled over me like a heavy blanket. Every time I questioned his behavior, he turned it around, made it about my paranoia, my trust issues, my inability to balance work and personal life. Classic manipulation. Patricia stood, moving to a cabinet behind her desk. She pulled out a bottle of water and handed it to me. Drink. You look pale. I took the bottle automatically, my hands shaking as I twisted off the cap. The water was cold, grounding. What do I do? That depends. What do you want to do? What did I want to do? Part of me wanted to run downstairs, confront Marcus in the parking garage, scream at him until my voice gave out. Part of me wanted to curl into a ball and never move again, but there was another part, a cold and calculating part that I usually reserve for the courtroom, that was already spinning through options. I want to destroy him, I said quietly. I want him to understand what he's done, what he tried to do. Patricia's smile was sharp. Then let's talk strategy. Because Rachel, you're forgetting something important. What's that? You're not some helpless victim he can manipulate. You're Dr. Rachel Torres, who revolutionized embryonic cell research. You're the attorney who's won landmark custody cases. You're the woman who built a career on fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. And I'm not just your fertility doctor. I'm your friend, your former research partner, and someone who has resources Marcus Whitmore can't even imagine. Something shifted in my chest. The shock was fading, replaced by something colder, sharper. He said I'm not mother material. He said you're too focused on helping people, too busy fighting battles, too committed to making the world better. Patricia's voice was hard. Those aren't flaws, Rachel. Those are the exact qualities that make someone an exceptional mother. He's intimidated by your strength, so he's trying to convince you it's weakness. I thought about the women I'd helped over the years, the mothers who'd been told they were unfit by abusive partners, by biased judges, by a system designed to break them. I'd fought for them, stood beside them, helped them reclaim their children and their dignity. How many times had I sat across from a client who'd been told she was crazy, unstable, unfit, only to discover it was projection, manipulation, abuse disguised as concern. I'd spent my career recognizing these patterns in other people's lives. How had I missed them in my own? He's going to try to find another doctor, I said slowly, someone who will tell me what he wants to hear. Let him try. The fertility medicine community is smaller than he thinks, especially at the upper levels, and I happen to know most of them personally. Patricia pulled out her phone. But more importantly, we need to figure out what he's really planning, because if he's been setting up this narrative about you being unfit, and he's already involved with someone else, I'm guessing the endgame isn't just calling off a wedding. The endgame. I turned the word over in my mind, applying the same analytical framework I used in court. Marcus was methodical, careful. He'd spent 3 years cultivating this relationship. He'd pushed for the prenup, which I'd signed without hesitation because I'd never cared about his money. He'd insisted we keep our finances separate, which had seemed reasonable at the time. He'd been the one to suggest we wait on buying property together until after the wedding. He's been protecting his assets, I realized, making sure I can't claim anything, while simultaneously building a case that you're unstable, unfit, unable to handle the responsibilities of marriage and family. Patricia's expression was grim. If I had to guess, I'd say he's planning to leave you right around the wedding. Maximum humiliation, maximum emotional damage. And if you react badly, which would be perfectly natural, he has documentation of your instability, your obsessive focus on work, your inability to prioritize family. Documented by a fertility specialist who confirmed I was too damaged to have children. The full picture was coming into focus now. He gets to be the sympathetic figure, the man who tried so hard with his broken fiancé, who stood by her through fertility struggles and emotional instability, who finally had to walk away for his own well-being, while he rides off into the sunset with his new partner, free and clear of any responsibility or blame. I stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the city stretched in every direction. Somewhere down there, Marcus was probably meeting up with Vivian, celebrating his clever manipulation, confident that his plan was working. He had no idea who he was actually dealing with. "I need to see my complete medical file," I said, turning back to Patricia. "Everything from all my appointments. I need to know exactly what's in there, what he might try to use." "Already pulled it." She gestured to her computer. "Your file is completely normal, Rachel. Everything we've done has been standard protocol for someone in your situation. There's nothing in here that could be twisted into evidence of unfitness, no matter how hard someone tried. But he'll find a doctor who'll say otherwise, for the right price. Then we document that too, and we make sure that when this goes to court, because I'm assuming this will end up in court, we have evidence of his attempted fraud." Patricia's fingers flew over her keyboard. "I'm going to send you encrypted copies of everything, including the recording from this morning's conversation." I blinked. "Recording? This is a medical facility. We record all consultations for liability purposes. Patients and visitors consent to it when they sign in. Marcus consented to being recorded when he tried to convince me to commit medical fraud." Her smile was cold. "It's all admissible." For the first time since I'd overheard that conversation, I felt something other than betrayal and rage. I felt the sharp, familiar edge of strategy clicking into place. This was what I did. This was who I was. Not the scattered, incompetent woman Marcus had tried to paint me as, but the attorney who'd built a reputation on dismantling exactly this kind of manipulative behavior. "I need to play this carefully," I said. "If I confront him now, he'll just accelerate his timeline. Possibly claim I'm having a breakdown, use it as evidence." "Agreed. So, what's your move?" "I thought about my upcoming cases. The custody battle for Maria Santos, whose ex-husband had spent 2 years building a case that she was an unfit mother while he systematically isolated her from support systems. The protective order for Yuki Tanaka, whose partner had used her fertility struggles as evidence of mental instability. The appeal for Denise Crawford, whose children had been taken because a biased evaluator believed career women couldn't be good mothers. I'd won all those cases by being patient, by gathering evidence, building unshakable documentation, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "I keep playing my role," I said slowly, "the hopeful fiancé, the woman desperate for children. I let him think his plan is working. While we gather evidence of everything he's actually doing, and we figure out exactly what he's planning for the wedding. Because if you're right, if he's setting up some kind of public humiliation, I want to know every detail." Patricia nodded, already typing. "I have a friend who does private investigation work. Very discreet. She can follow Marcus, document his movements, find out exactly what's going on with Vivian Chen. I can't afford—" "Rachel." Patricia looked up, her expression softening. "You held my hand through the worst period of my life. You sat with me in this very building, in the research lab downstairs, and helped me process my grief while we were literally developing treatments to help other women achieve what I couldn't. You never let me give up on my purpose, even when I wanted to burn everything down." She paused. "You think I'm going to charge you for this?" My throat tightened. "Patricia. Besides, watching Marcus Whitmore get exactly what he deserves will be payment enough. That man tried to use my clinic, my reputation, to psychologically abuse you. That's not just personal, that's professional." Her eyes hardened. "Nobody manipulates my patients. Nobody." We spent the next hour going over details. Patricia pulled up Marcus's file, showing me every appointment, every test result, every conversation they'd documented. It was all there. His apparent concern, his supportive demeanor, his careful questions about timelines and procedures. "He's been very interested in the psychological aspects," Patricia noted, pointing to her notes from various sessions. Asked multiple times about the emotional impact of infertility, wanted to know about support groups, therapy options, medication for depression and anxiety. Building his narrative, I said bitterly, making sure it's documented that he was concerned about my mental health. Which will backfire spectacularly when we show that he was the one trying to manufacture a mental health crisis. She made another note. I'm also going to reach out to a colleague of mine who specializes in psychological evaluations in family court. Off the record. I want her perspective on what Marcus might be planning. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Hey babe, appointment go okay? Sorry I couldn't stay, emergency at the office. Let's grab dinner tonight and you can tell me everything. Love you. I stared at the message, at those casual words. That easy manipulation. Love you. As if he hadn't just tried to convince my doctor to destroy my dreams, as if he wasn't planning to humiliate me in front of everyone I knew. What should I say? I held up the phone to Patricia. Play along. Tell him the appointment was fine. You'll talk at dinner. Keep everything normal. My fingers moved over the screen. Appointment went well. Patricia says everything looks good. Just need to be patient. Dinner sounds perfect. Love you too. The lie tasted bitter, but it was necessary. I was going to play Marcus's game. I was going to be the perfect, hopeful fiancé. And while he was busy congratulating himself on his clever manipulation, I was going to build a case against him that would destroy everything he'd carefully constructed. I need to go, I said, standing. I have a meeting with a new client this afternoon. But Patricia, thank you. For everything. We're just getting started. She walked me to the door, then paused. Rachel, be careful. Men like Marcus, when they realize they're losing control, they can become dangerous. I've dealt with dangerous men before. I know how to protect myself. This is different. This is personal. Promise me you'll be smart about this. I met her eyes, saw the genuine concern there. I promise. And Patricia, keep that recording safe. I have a feeling we're going to need it. I left the clinic in a daze, my mind spinning with possibilities and plans. The afternoon sun was bright, almost offensive in its cheerfulness. People walked past me on the busy street, going about their normal days, completely unaware that my entire world had just been turned inside out. My car was in the parking garage, but I found myself walking instead, needing the movement, the air, the space to think. My phone kept buzzing with messages. The caterer, the florist, Marcus's mother asking about table arrangements. Everyone so excited about the wedding, about the future Marcus and I were supposedly building together. A future that had never been real. I stopped at a small park a few blocks from the clinic, sinking onto a bench beneath a massive oak tree. Around me, children played on swings and slides. A young mother pushed a stroller, cooing at the baby inside. An older couple sat nearby, hands intertwined, watching the scene with contented smiles. This was what I'd wanted, what I'd thought Marcus wanted too. A family, children, a life built on love and trust and partnership. Instead, I'd been a project. An obstacle to be managed, a problem to be solved. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus calling. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, then answered. Hey, I said, injecting warmth into my voice. Everything okay? Yeah, just wanted to hear your voice. His tone was smooth, affectionate. I felt bad about having to run out. This client is being incredibly demanding, and Vivian needed backup on the presentation. Vivian. He'd just casually mentioned her name, confident that I suspected nothing. No problem. I know how important this project is. You're amazing, you know that? So understanding. Lots of women would be upset about their fiancé missing a fertility appointment. Lots of women. As if I should be grateful for his bare minimum effort. as if showing up to appointments before trying to sabotage them was some kind of achievement. Patricia says everything looks good, I said, keeping my voice light. We just need to stay optimistic and keep trying. There was a pause. Just a fraction of a second too long. That's great, babe. Really great. So she didn't mention any concerns? Nothing we need to worry about? He wanted to know if Patricia had planted seeds of doubt, if his plan was working through her despite her refusal. Nothing at all. She's very encouraged by our progress. Another pause. Well, that's fantastic. Listen, about dinner tonight. I know I said we could go out, but Vivian just told me we need to revise the entire West Wing design. Could we do takeout at my place instead? I should probably work through the evening. His place. The condo he'd kept even after we got engaged, claiming it was a good investment property. The place I'd never been invited to for more than a quick visit because he said he was hardly ever there, that it made more sense to stay at my apartment. Sure, I said. I can pick something up. Ty? Perfect. You're the best. Love you. Love you too. I ended the call and sat there, staring at my phone. Marcus had just invited me to his condo for an evening where he'd be working, which meant I'd have access to his space, his files, his life, while he was distracted with Vivian and their fake project. Patricia was right. I wasn't just some victim Marcus could manipulate. I was a woman who'd spent years learning how to build cases, gather evidence, and fight battles that seemed impossible. And Marcus Whitmore had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd underestimated me. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to Lisa Chen, a private investigator I'd worked with on several custody cases. Then to my law partner, David Morrison, who specialized in family law and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless when clients had been betrayed. Then to my best friend, Zara, who worked in tech security and had skills that were technically legal but creatively applied. By the time I left that park, I had the beginning of a team. People who believed in justice, who'd seen what manipulative partners could do, who understood that sometimes fighting back required a comprehensive strategy. Marcus thought he was playing chess while I played checkers. He was about to learn that I'd been playing chess all along. I'd just been polite enough to let him think he was winning. My apartment was in the Riverside district, a converted warehouse building with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd bought it 5 years ago, before Marcus, back when I was just starting to build my career. It was my sanctuary, my space, filled with books and case files and the evidence of a life built on my own terms. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my desk, pulling out a legal pad. At the top, I wrote, "Evidence needed." Then I started listing everything I'd need to prove Marcus's manipulation, his fraud, his betrayal. My phone buzzed with an email from Patricia. The subject line read, "Documentation, encrypted." Inside was a secure link to files from this morning's appointment, including the audio recording of Marcus's attempt to convince her to lie to me. I listened to it 3 times. Each time, his words felt like a fresh betrayal. But by the third listen, I was hearing it differently. Not as a victim, but as an attorney building a case. She's not mother material. Too focused on her hobbies, too scattered. That would play beautifully in court, especially contrasted with my actual record. The pro bono work, the landmark cases, the women and children I'd helped. A judge would see right through his manipulation. I need you to tell her she can't have children. Make something up. Attempted fraud. Potentially criminal. Definitely grounds for a lawsuit. And it established his willingness to lie, to manipulate, to use medical professionals in his schemes. By the time the wedding rolls around, she'll be too devastated about the baby thing to even think about any of this. What was any of this? What was he planning that required me to be emotionally devastated and distracted? I made a note. Investigate wedding plans. What is Marcus really arranging? My phone rang. Lisa Chen, the private investigator. Rachel, got your message? This sounds juicy. When do you want to start? Tonight. My fiancé is at his condo with his work partner. I need to know if it's actually work or something else. I need photos, documentation, everything that will hold up in court. On it. Send me the address and any other details you have. What's your budget for this? I thought about my savings, the money I'd carefully set aside over the years, money I'd been planning to use for the wedding, for a down payment on a house, for starting a family with Marcus. Whatever it takes, I said. I want everything. His movements, his communications, his secrets. I want to know who Marcus Whitmore really is. You'll have it. I'm guessing this is going to end up in court? That's the goal. Then we'll do this by the book. Everything documented, everything legal, everything admissible. You're not going to have any trouble proving your case when I'm done. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair, looking around my apartment. This was my space, my sanctuary. Marcus had never liked it, had always pushed for us to stay at his place or find somewhere more suitable together. Now I understood why. He'd wanted me off balance, in his territory, under his control, but I'd resisted. Some instinct had kept me anchored here, in the life I'd built before him. That instinct might have just saved me. I spent the next few hours reviewing my upcoming cases, but my mind kept drifting back to Marcus. To 3 years of memories that now felt tainted, false. Had any of it been real? Had he ever loved me? Or had I just been a project from the start? The doorbell rang at 7. Food delivery. I'd ordered Thai from Marcus's favorite place, playing my role perfectly. Then I drove across town to his condo, my heart hammering with a mixture of rage and purpose. The building was modern, all glass and steel, in the expensive waterfront district. Marcus had bought it 3 years ago, right around the time we started dating. I'd helped him pick out furniture, had spent a few nights here in the beginning, but gradually he'd steered us away from it. Too much work to maintain, he'd said. Easier to just stay at your place. Now I wondered what he'd really been hiding. I rode the elevator to the 12th floor carrying the bags of Thai food. Lisa had texted me 20 minutes ago. In position. Have eyes on subject and female companion. Will document everything. Female companion. Vivian. I knocked on Marcus's door, arranging my face into a pleasant smile. When he opened it, I saw him clearly for the first time in years. Not the man I'd fallen in love with, but the man he actually was. Handsome in a calculated way, his smile practiced, his eyes scanning me with assessment rather than affection. "Hey, babe," he said, taking the food. "You're a lifesaver." Behind him, I could see Vivian Chen perched on the couch, her laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. She was beautiful, polished. Everything Marcus had probably wanted in a partner. Everything I supposedly wasn't. "Hi," I said, giving her a friendly wave. "Sorry to interrupt the work session." "No problem," Vivian said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "We needed a break anyway." I stepped inside, looking around the space with new eyes. The condo was immaculate, decorated in shades of gray and white. Cold, professional. Nothing like my warm, lived-in apartment. And on the bookshelf, I noticed several framed photos. Marcus with Vivian at what looked like work events. Marcus with Vivian at a restaurant. Marcus with Vivian on a hiking trail. No photos of me. "The design looks great," I said, moving closer to look at the papers on the coffee table. "This is for the tech mogul, right?" "Yeah," Marcus said quickly, moving to partially block my view. "It's been a challenging project. Lots of last-minute changes. But I'd already seen enough. The papers weren't design plans. They were financial documents, investment portfolios, property assessments. Marcus was planning something much bigger than just leaving me. Well, I'll let you two get back to it, I said brightly. Marcus, call me when you're done. We can catch up on the wedding planning. Absolutely. Thanks again for dinner, babe. I left the condo with my heart racing, my mind spinning. Those documents had been real, financial planning documents, and some of them had my name on them. Outside, I found Lisa's van parked in the visitor lot. I slipped into the passenger seat and she handed me a tablet showing the surveillance feed from Marcus's condo. Check this out, she said, rewinding to footage from before I'd arrived. Your boy and his work partner have been getting very cozy. On the screen, I watched Marcus and Vivian on his couch. They weren't looking at design plans. They were looking at documents, talking intently. And then Marcus pulled Vivian close and kissed her. I've been documenting since 4 p.m., Lisa said. They've been at this all afternoon. Whatever they're planning, it involves a lot of paperwork and a lot of physical affection. Can you tell what they're looking at? Working on it. I've got telephoto shots of some of the documents. One of my associates is enhancing them now. She glanced at me. You okay? Was I okay? I just watched my fiancé kiss another woman in the home I'd helped him furnish. I'd discovered he was planning something that involved my finances. I'd realized that 3 years of my life had been built on lies. I'm fine, I said. I'm going to be fine. Because we're going to take him down. That's what I like to hear. Lisa grinned. Stick around, let's see what else we can catch on camera. We sat there for 2 more hours, watching through the surveillance feed. Marcus and Vivian ordered their own takeout. They drank wine. They looked at more documents. And every interaction between them was intimate, familiar, the behavior of a couple who'd been together for a while. How long had this been going on? Had it started when Vivian joined his firm 8 months ago, or had it been longer? Had Marcus been cheating through our entire relationship? There, Lisa said suddenly, freezing the frame. Look at that document. I leaned closer. The telephoto lens had captured a page clearly enough to read the header. Dissolution of assets. Marcus Whitmore and Rachel Torres. Dissolution of assets. He was planning to take me for everything I had. But I'd kept my finances separate. The prenup protected both of us. What could he possibly be after? Can you get a better shot of that? I asked. Already on it. But Rachel, this looks serious. This isn't just a guy planning to leave his fiancée. This is someone planning financial fraud. I thought about my apartment, my savings, my investments. I'd been careful, kept everything in my name, maintained my independence. But there were joint accounts. The wedding planning account that we'd both contributed to. The savings account we'd opened for our future family. How much was in those accounts? 50,000? 60? It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. Marcus was trying to steal from me while simultaneously destroying my reputation and my dreams. This was war. We stayed until midnight, until the lights in Marcus's condo finally went out. Lisa had hundreds of photos, hours of video, documentation of Marcus and Vivian's affair, and their apparent plans to defraud me. I'll have a full report by tomorrow afternoon, Lisa said as I climbed out of the van. But Rachel, you need to be careful. Whatever they're planning, it's calculated and potentially criminal. These aren't amateur hour mistakes. Neither am I said. Get me everything you can. I want to know what they're planning before they have a chance to execute it. I drove home through empty streets, my mind working through possibilities. When I got back to my apartment, I found an email from David Morrison, my law partner. Rachel, got your message. I've cleared my schedule for tomorrow. We need to discuss protective measures immediately. Based on what you've told me, you could be at risk of serious financial and reputational harm. Come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. Bring everything. Prenup, Bank statements, any documentation you have of Marcus's behavior. We're going to build a case that will protect you and probably put him in serious legal trouble. See you at 8 a.m. I replied with a simple, "Thank you," then opened my safe and started gathering documents. The prenup, signed 3 years ago. Bank statements showing my separate finances. Documents from the few joint accounts we'd opened. Tax returns, investment records. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Hey babe, finished up late. Vivian and I finally nailed down the design. So relieved. Sorry I couldn't call. Love you. See you tomorrow." I stared at the message, at his casual lies. He was good at this. Smooth. Practiced. How many other women had he done this to? Was I just the latest in a long line of marks? Or was I the one who was finally going to make him pay? I typed back. "No worries. Glad it went well. Can't wait to see you. Love you." Then I screenshotted the text and added it to my growing evidence file. By 3 a.m., I had everything organized: bank records, communications, timeline of Marcus's behavior, notes from today's discovery. It was the beginning of a case, the foundation of proof that would show Marcus Whitmore for exactly who he was. I finally crawled into bed, exhausted but wired. Sleep came in fits and starts. Plagued by dreams of weddings that turned into courtrooms, of babies that disappeared when I reached for them, of Marcus's face morphing into a stranger's. At 7 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I showered, dressed in my most professional suit, armor for the battle ahead, and headed to David's office. He was waiting with coffee and a grim expression. "Rachel," he said, gesturing me into his conference room, "tell me everything." I did. I started with Marcus's attempt to manipulate Patricia, moved through the discovery of his affair with Vivian, detailed the financial documents I'd seen at his condo, and ended with Lisa's surveillance evidence. David listened without interrupting, taking notes on his tablet. When I finished, he sat back and rubbed his temples. "This is worse than I thought," he said finally. "Marcus isn't just planning to leave you. He's planning to destroy you financially and use fraudulent medical evidence to damage your professional reputation." Can he actually do that? I mean, Patricia refused to lie. But he'll find someone who won't refuse. There are always doctors willing to bend ethics for the right price. And if he gets someone to claim you're mentally unstable, unable to have children due to psychological factors, unable to function as a parent. David's expression was dark. "Rachel, you work in custody law. You know how that narrative can be weaponized." I did know. I'd seen it used against my clients countless times. The unstable mother, the unfit parent, the woman too broken to care for children. So what do? We go on offense. Hard and fast. David pulled up a document on his tablet. "First, we need to secure your assets. I want you to move all shared funds into a protected account today. We'll claim it's for wedding expenses, completely legitimate. Then we need to lock down your property rights. The prenup should protect you, but we're going to make absolutely certain." What about Marcus's plans? The financial fraud? We document everything and let him walk right into it. Then we use it against him. Attempted fraud, manipulation of medical professionals, infidelity, despite promises of monogamy, it all builds a case for damages. I don't want his money. I want justice. David smiled grimly. "Rachel, justice and hitting him where it hurts aren't mutually exclusive. Marcus has been building a narrative that you're unstable and unfit. We're going to build a counter-narrative that shows him as a calculating predator. And when we're done, his reputation, his career, and his relationship with Vivian Chen are going to be in ruins." Over the next several hours, David and I built a strategy: legal protections, evidence gathering, witnesses who could speak to my character and competence, Expert testimony about the psychological impact of Marcus's manipulation. It was comprehensive, careful, and absolutely devastating. By the time I left David's office that afternoon, I had a plan. More than that, I had purpose. Marcus Whitmore thought he'd found an easy mark. A desperate woman who wanted children so badly she'd overlook his manipulation. A successful attorney he could diminish and destroy. He was about to learn what happened when you underestimated a woman who'd spent her career dismantling men exactly like him. My phone buzzed as I walked to my car. A text from Marcus. Dinner tonight? My treat. Want to celebrate? Got some good news about the wedding venue. Good news about the wedding venue. I almost laughed. He was still playing his role, the devoted fiancé, while he planned my destruction. I texted back. Sounds perfect. Can't wait to hear the news. Then I forwarded the message to David, to Lisa, to Patricia. Evidence, documentation, proof that Marcus was maintaining his charade even while his affair continued. The game was on, and Marcus had no idea he'd already lost. The restaurant Marcus chose was predictably expensive. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, a sommelier who spoke in reverent whispers about wine pairings. The kind of place where proposals happened, where couples celebrated anniversaries, where futures were planned over perfectly plated courses. Marcus was already seated when I arrived, his suit tailored, his smile wide. He stood to greet me, pulling out my chair with theatrical gallantry. "You look beautiful," he said, and I wondered how many times he'd said those exact words while planning my destruction. "Thank you. You said you had news about the venue?" His eyes lit up. Genuine excitement, or a perfect imitation of it. The Grandview Estate had a cancellation, June 15th. It's ours if we want it. June 15th. 6 months away. I smiled, playing my part. That's amazing. I thought they were booked 2 years in advance. They are, but apparently the couple who had it broke up. Their loss. Our gain. He reached across the table, taking my hand. His fingers were warm, familiar. They'd held mine through movies, through walks in the park, through 3 years of carefully constructed lies. I know the timing's tight, but I think we can make it work, don't you? I thought about Lisa's surveillance photos, Marcus and Vivian kissing on his couch, the financial documents spread between them, the dissolution of assets paperwork with my name on it. It's perfect, I said. Absolutely perfect. We ordered. Marcus chose wine, a bottle that cost more than most people's car payments. He was celebrating, confident, secure in his belief that everything was going according to plan. "How did your appointment go yesterday?" he asked, his voice carefully casual. "You said Patricia was encouraging?" There it was. The real reason for this dinner. He wanted to know if his plan had worked, if Patricia had planted seeds of doubt despite her refusal to outright lie. "She said everything looks normal. We just need to be patient. Keep trying." I watched his face carefully. "She mentioned that stress can be a factor, though. Said I should consider cutting back on work, focusing more on self-care and preparing for motherhood." A flicker of satisfaction crossed his features. "That's good advice. You do work too much, babe. All those pro bono cases, the late nights. It's admirable, but maybe it's time to think about priorities." "You're right," I said softly. "Maybe I should scale back. Focus on us, on starting our family." "That's my girl." He squeezed my hand. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. About work." Here we go, I thought. Whatever he's planning, this is part of it. Vivian mentioned that her firm is looking for legal counsel. Corporate stuff. Nothing too demanding. Better hours, better pay than what you're doing now. I thought maybe you could interview with them after the wedding. Fresh start for both of us. I kept my expression neutral, interested. "That's thoughtful of you, but I love what I do." helping those women, those families. I know you do. But Rachel, be honest with yourself. Is it sustainable? All that emotional weight? Those late nights? The stress? He leaned forward, his voice dropping into concerned territory. Especially if we're trying to start a family, you need to take care of yourself. Translation. He wanted me dependent, working for his mistress's firm under their control. Easier to manipulate, easier to destroy when the time came. Let me think about it, I said. It's a big change. Of course, no pressure. Just want what's best for you. For us. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Emergency. Call me when you can. Sorry, I said, glancing at the screen. It's a client. She's in crisis. Can it wait? Marcus's voice had an edge now. We're having dinner. This is important. I know. I'm sorry. But she's in a dangerous situation. Her ex violated the restraining order. I just need 5 minutes. I watched the frustration flash across his face before he smoothed it away. Sure. Of course. Do what you need to do. I stepped outside, dialing Lisa. She answered on the first ring. Rachel, we've got a problem. Marcus and Vivian met with a lawyer this afternoon. I followed them to Stevens and Associates downtown. Stevens and Associates, one of the most aggressive family law firms in the city, known for taking scorched earth approaches to divorce cases. They're not married, I said slowly. No, but I managed to get photos of the documents they were carrying in. Rachel, they're planning to claim common law marriage. They're saying you and Marcus have been cohabiting, that you've commingled assets, that you're essentially married under state law. My blood ran cold. We're not. I kept everything separate. I know that, you know that. But they're manufacturing evidence. I've got photos of receipts, mail forwarded to his address with your name on it, social media posts that make it look like you've been living together. It's all fabricated, but it's convincing. Why would they claim common law marriage? The prenup can be contested under common law provisions. And if they can convince a court you're already married, they can claim your separate assets are actually marital property. Rachel, they're going after everything. Your apartment, your savings, your retirement accounts. They're building a case that you've been hiding assets from your husband. I leaned against the restaurant's brick wall, my mind racing. This was bigger than I'd thought. Marcus wasn't just planning to leave me at the altar. He was planning to claim we were already married, that I'd been hiding assets, that I was unfit and unstable and needed to forfeit everything to him. How solid is their case? Solid enough to cause you serious problems. They've got a crooked lawyer willing to file it, fabricated evidence, and Marcus's testimony about your shared life. Combined with his narrative about your mental instability and infertility issues, they could drag you through court for years. Get me everything, I said. Every photo, every document, every piece of evidence they're manufacturing. And Lisa? Call David Morrison. Tell him we need to accelerate our timeline. You're going to confront Marcus? I'm going to destroy him. I hung up and stood there for a moment, gathering myself. Then I walked back into the restaurant where Marcus sat waiting, his expression arranged into concerned patience. Everything okay? He asked as I sat down. Fine. Just a scared client. I talked her down. See, this is what I mean. You're amazing at what you do. But it takes a toll. He reached for my hand again. You deserve better. You deserve a life where you're not constantly in crisis mode. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I'd ever believed any of it. The concern was paint thin, the affection calculated. He was a predator wearing a boyfriend costume. Marcus, I said slowly, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you love me? He didn't miss a beat. Of course I do. You know that. Then why did you ask my doctor to tell me I'm infertile? The color drained from his face. For a long moment, he just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Then the mask slipped back into place, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. What are you talking about? Yesterday morning, before my appointment. You tried to convince Dr. Henshaw to lie to me about my fertility, to tell me I couldn't have children. Rachel, I don't know what you think you heard. I heard everything, Marcus. Patricia records all consultations. I have the audio file. I pulled out my phone, pressed play. His voice filled the space between us. Between you and me, doctor. I need you to tell her she can't have children. Make something up. His face went white, then red. People at nearby tables were starting to stare. Where did you get that? That's illegal. It's completely legal. Medical facilities record consultations for liability purposes. You consented when you signed in. I leaned forward. You tried to use my doctor to psychologically abuse me, to manufacture a medical crisis that would make me easier to control. You're twisting this. I was concerned about you, about the stress. You told her I wasn't mother material, that I was too focused on my hobbies, that you needed someone more maternal. I felt the rage building but kept my voice steady. You called my life's work, the cases I fight, the women I help. You called it hobbies. Rachel, please, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly, clearer than I have in years. I set my phone on the table. I also know about Vivian. I know you've been having an affair. I know about your plans to claim common law marriage and go after my assets. I know about the lawyer you met with today, about the fabricated evidence you're manufacturing. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself from a con artist. I stood too, meeting his eyes. You spent 3 years building a narrative that I was broken, unstable, desperate for children I couldn't have. You were going to use that to humiliate me, steal from me, and walk away clean with your mistress. This is insane. You're having some kind of breakdown. No, Marcus. I'm having a moment of clarity. I gathered my purse. You picked the wrong woman to manipulate. I've spent my entire career fighting men exactly like you. Men who use power to control, who gaslight and manipulate, who think women are just marks to exploit. I'll sue you for defamation, for invasion of privacy. You can't just... I can. And I will. I smiled then, cold and sharp. See, unlike you, everything I've done has been completely legal. The recordings are admissible. The surveillance was conducted in public spaces. The documentation is ironclad. But your attempted fraud, your fabricated evidence, your conspiracy to defraud me, that's all very, very illegal. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? The Grandview estate? I called them this afternoon. There was no cancellation, no June 15th booking. That was just another lie. His face went ashen. Rachel, wait. We can talk about this. No, we can't. My lawyer will be in touch. You'll be served with a restraining order by tomorrow morning, and I'll be filing criminal charges for fraud and attempted coercion of a medical professional. I looked at him one last time. I really did love you. That's the saddest part. I loved someone who never even existed. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, leaving Marcus standing among the crystal and white tablecloths, his perfect plan in ruins around him. Outside, I called David. It's done, I said. He knows I know everything. Good. Come to my office. We're filing tonight. The next 48 hours were a blur of legal documents, depositions, and evidence compilation. David filed for a restraining order that was granted immediately. We filed criminal complaints with the DA's office. We submitted Patricia's recording to the medical board, triggering an investigation into Marcus's attempted coercion. Lisa's surveillance evidence proved the affair and documented Marcus and Vivian's meetings with the crooked lawyer. We filed complaints against that lawyer with the State Bar Association. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. 2 days after the confrontation, Patricia called me. "Rachel, I've been doing some digging into Marcus's background, medical records, previous relationships. I wanted to understand what we were dealing with." Her voice was grim. "He's done this before." "What?" "3 years before you, there was another woman, Melissa Grant. She was a successful financial advisor. Marcus dated her for 2 years, got engaged, and then suddenly she suffered a nervous breakdown right before the wedding. Lost her job, her reputation, ended up in significant debt." My stomach turned. "He did the same thing to her." "Yes, but she didn't have the resources to fight back. She didn't have friends who were medical professionals, didn't have the legal expertise you have. He destroyed her and walked away clean." Patricia paused. "I tracked her down. She's willing to testify." Melissa Grant became our star witness. She told her story to the DA, to our lawyers, to anyone who would listen. Marcus's pattern of predatory behavior became undeniable. The medical board revoked the license of the doctor Marcus had eventually found to lie about my fertility. Turns out he'd been caught doing similar things before. Vivian Chen lost her job when her firm discovered she'd been part of a conspiracy to commit fraud. And the lawyer at Stevens & Associates faced disbarment proceedings. But Marcus lost everything. His firm fired him immediately, citing the criminal investigation. His friends abandoned him once the evidence became public. His family, mortified by the scandal, cut him off financially. The wedding venue, the one he'd lied about securing, I actually did book it for June 15th. But not for a wedding. For a charity gala supporting legal aid for women escaping abusive relationships. I invited everyone who'd been on our wedding guest list and used the event to tell my story, to warn other women about predatory men who use manipulation and fraud as weapons. 3 months after that dinner, I sat in a courtroom watching Marcus plead guilty to attempted fraud and coercion. He looked diminished somehow, smaller than the man who'd tried to destroy me. The judge sentenced him to 2 years in prison and ordered him to pay restitution for the legal fees and emotional damages. "Before I finalize this sentence," the judge said, looking at Marcus over her glasses, "I want you to understand what you did. You didn't just attempt fraud. You tried to weaponize medicine, to use a woman's deepest desires against her, to manufacture psychological trauma for your own gain. That's not just criminal. It's evil." Marcus's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. "Ms. Torres, would you like to make a statement?" I stood, feeling the weight of the moment. Behind me in the gallery sat Patricia, David, Lisa, and Melissa Grant. Women who'd fought beside me. Women who'd refused to let Marcus's manipulation stand. "Your Honor, I don't want Marcus to go to prison because I'm vindictive. I want him to go to prison because other women need to be protected from him. He's a predator who uses love as a weapon, who exploits vulnerability for personal gain. He tried to convince my doctor to destroy my hopes of having children. He manufactured evidence to steal my assets. He did this to another woman before me, and if he's not stopped, he'll do it to another woman after me." I looked at Marcus then, meeting his eyes. "You told Dr. Henshaw that I wasn't mother material, that I was too focused on helping people, too busy fighting battles for others. You meant it as an insult. But you were right about one thing. I do fight battles. I fight them for women who can't fight for themselves. And I won this one. Not just for me, but for every woman you might have targeted next." The judge nodded slowly. "The sentence stands. 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Mr. Whitmore, I hope you use that time to reflect on the harm you've caused." After the sentencing, we all went to Patricia's office. She'd ordered lunch from my favorite Italian place, and we sat in her conference room, a strange celebration among women who'd become sisters through shared battle. "So what's next for you?" Patricia asked, pouring wine into glasses. "I'm actually taking on a new case," I said. "A woman whose ex-husband used her fertility struggles to claim she was mentally unfit. Sound familiar?" Melissa Grant laughed. "You're going to make a career out of this, aren't you? Fighting manipulative assholes who use reproduction as a weapon." "Someone has to." I raised my glass. To Patricia, who refused to compromise her ethics. To Lisa, who documented everything. To David, who built an ironclad case. To Melissa, who was brave enough to come forward. And to every woman who's been told she's not enough by someone who was never worthy of her in the first place. We clinked glasses, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not closure exactly, but something close. Purpose. Direction. A sense that this pain had meaning, that Marcus's betrayal had revealed something I was meant to do. 6 months later, I sat in my office reviewing a new case when my assistant knocked on the door. "Rachel, there's someone here to see you, says it's about a personal matter." A woman walked in, mid-30s, well-dressed but with the haunted look I'd seen on too many faces. The look of someone who'd been systematically broken down by someone they trusted. "Ms. Torres, my name is Amanda Price. My fiancé has been trying to convince our couple's therapist that I have borderline personality disorder. He's building a case that I'm too unstable to have children, but I found recordings. Evidence that he's been manipulating the sessions, coaching the therapist on what to say." She sat down, her hands shaking. "I heard about your case, about what you did to Marcus Whitmore. I need your help." I looked at her, at the desperation and determination in her eyes, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. "Tell me everything," I said, pulling out my legal pad. "From the beginning." As Amanda began her story, I thought about Marcus, about the pain he'd caused and the lesson he'd learned. I thought about Patricia, about the work we'd done together and the work still ahead. I thought about all the women out there facing men like Marcus, men who used love as a weapon and manipulation as a tool. And I thought about the question Patricia had asked me all those months ago in her office. "What do you want to do?" I wanted to fight. I wanted to win. I wanted to make sure that no woman ever felt as alone and helpless as I had felt standing outside that consultation room, hearing the man I loved try to destroy my dreams. Marcus had tried to break me by claiming I wasn't fit to be a mother, but in fighting back, I'd found my true calling. Not motherhood, at least not yet, but something equally powerful. Becoming the mother bear who protected other women from predators in expensive suits. As Amanda talked, I took notes, already building the strategy that would dismantle her fiancé's carefully constructed lies, already planning the countermoves that would expose his manipulation, already preparing for the battle ahead. Because that's what I did now. That's who I was. I was Dr. Rachel Torres, attorney at law, former fertility researcher, and the woman who'd turned her greatest betrayal into her strongest weapon. And I was just getting started. 3 years later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium giving a TED Talk titled "The Weaponization of Reproductive Medicine." In the audience sat Patricia, David, Lisa, Melissa, and Amanda, whose fiancé had not only lost his case, but had faced professional sanctions for his manipulation tactics. Behind them sat dozens of other women, each one a client I'd helped, a life I'd fought for, a story that had ended in justice rather than destruction. "We talk about reproductive rights," I said, my voice steady and strong. "But we don't talk enough about reproductive manipulation, about partners who use fertility struggles as weapons, about men who try to convince women they're unfit for motherhood because they're too strong, too successful, too unwilling to be controlled." I clicked to the next slide, showing statistics my team had compiled. 63% of women in abusive relationships report that their partner used their desire for children as a control mechanism. 47% report that fertility struggles were used as evidence of their inadequacy. And in family court, women are 4 times more likely than men to be labeled as mentally unfit parents. The numbers were staggering. The problem was systemic. I started this work because a man I loved tried to destroy me by convincing my doctor to lie about my fertility. He failed because I had resources, expertise, and support. But how many women don't have those things? How many women are being destroyed right now by partners who use reproduction as a weapon? I paused, looking out at the audience. That's why I'm announcing the launch of the Reproductive Justice Legal Defense Fund, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free legal representation to women facing reproductive manipulation and coercion. We're starting with a staff of 5 attorneys and growing from there. Because every woman deserves a champion. Every woman deserves to fight back. The auditorium erupted in applause. As I stepped off the stage, Patricia was waiting with tears in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into a movement." "We turned it into a movement," I corrected. "None of this would have happened without you." That night, I sat in my apartment, the one I'd kept, the sanctuary that had never been tainted by Marcus's presence, and opened my laptop. My inbox was flooded with messages from women asking for help, sharing their stories, offering support. One email caught my eye. The subject line read, "Thank you for saving my life." I opened it to find a message from a woman named Sarah Chen, who'd seen the TED Talk and recognized her own story in mine. Her husband had been trying to use their IVF struggles to claim she was mentally unstable. She'd filed for divorce and sought help from our new defense fund. "I thought I was alone," she wrote. "I thought I was crazy. Your story showed me that I wasn't either of those things. I was just a woman dealing with a predator. Because of you, I'm free. My children are safe, and my ex-husband is facing the consequences of his actions. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for winning. Thank you for showing the rest of us how to do the same." I sat back, reading and rereading her words. This was it. This was the purpose Marcus had inadvertently given me. He'd tried to destroy me by claiming I wasn't fit to be a mother, but instead, he'd helped me become a mother to a movement. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Rachel?" A familiar voice, older now, tentative. "It's Marcus." I hadn't heard from him since the trial. He'd served his time, disappeared into whatever life awaited convicted fraudsters. "What do you want, Marcus?" I saw your TED Talk. Someone sent me the link. I just wanted to say." He paused, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Genuine regret. "I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You were right. About all of it. I was a predator. I did use love as a weapon. And seeing what you've built, what you're doing now, I just needed you to know that I'm sorry." For a long moment I didn't speak. I thought about that night in the restaurant, about the pain and betrayal, about the long fight that had followed. I thought about all the women I'd helped since then, all the battles we'd won together. "I appreciate the apology, Marcus. I do. But I didn't do any of this for you. I didn't build this movement to make you feel guilty or to get revenge. I did it for every woman you might have hurt next, for every woman who's being hurt right now by someone like you. I know that." He sounded tired, defeated. "I'm in therapy now. Real therapy. Trying to understand why I did what I did. Trying to become someone different." "That's good," I said simply. "I hope you succeed. Not for my sake, but for the sake of any woman who might cross your path in the future. Will you ever forgive me?" I thought about that question, about forgiveness and healing and moving forward. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But Marcus, I don't need to forgive you to be whole. I don't need your redemption to have found my purpose. You tried to break me, and instead, you made me stronger. That's not forgiveness. That's just truth. I understand. He paused. For what it's worth, you were always mother material, the best kind. You just didn't mother people. You mothered causes. You fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves. I was too insecure to see that as strength. After we hung up, I stood at my window looking out at the city lights, thinking about the strange journey that had brought me here. From that devastating moment outside the consultation room to this moment, running a nonprofit that helped hundreds of women fight back against reproductive manipulation. Marcus had been right about one thing. I wasn't traditional mother material. I was something better. I was a warrior, a champion, a voice for women who needed someone to believe them, fight for them, stand beside them. And that was the greatest victory of all, not destroying Marcus, but discovering who I really was underneath the role I'd been playing for him. 3 months later, Patricia called me with unexpected news. Rachel, I need you to come to the clinic. There's something we need to discuss. When I arrived, she was waiting with an unusual expression, half excited, half nervous. What's going on? I asked. Remember when you did your last fertility workup before everything happened with Marcus? We froze some of your eggs as a precaution. I remember. I've been following your work, watching you build this incredible organization. And I've been thinking about what you said during your TED Talk, about how Marcus tried to steal your dream of motherhood, but instead, you found a different kind of purpose. She paused. Rachel, those eggs are still viable. And if you ever want to use them, I want you to know that you have options. You can be both things, the warrior and the mother. You don't have to choose. I felt tears sting my eyes. Patricia, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you can, on your own terms, in your own time, without anyone telling you whether you're fit or ready or worthy. Because you're all of those things, Rachel. You always were. I hugged her then. This woman who'd stood beside me through everything, who'd refused to compromise her ethics, who'd helped me find my purpose. Thank you, I whispered, for everything, for never giving up on me. You never gave up on yourself, she said. You just needed to remember who you were. As I left the clinic that day, I thought about futures, the one Marcus had tried to steal, the one I'd built instead, and the one still waiting to be written. I thought about motherhood in all its forms, about the women I'd helped, the lives I'd changed, the movement I'd started. I thought about that woman who'd stood frozen outside a consultation room, her world shattering around her, never imagining that her greatest pain would become her greatest strength. And I smiled. Because Marcus Whitmore had tried to prove I wasn't fit to be a mother. Instead, he'd helped me become mother to hundreds. That was a victory no courtroom could match. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.